resent the meeting confirmation to everybody who'd registered as a reminder. So I'm sure we'll have folks trickling in, but I think it would be good to get started.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. And I want to thank our candidates, Senator James Manning, State Rep Treasurer Tobias Reed, Mr. Dave Stauffer, and Mr. James Jim Crary for being here and for running for Secretary of State. We appreciate you stepping up for our wonderful state. We also look forward to hearing about your vision for the Secretary of State position. The Secretary of State touches many aspects of our lives that some of us may not realize. The Secretary of State is the auditor of both our public programs that assist our fellow citizens in getting the help they need, and our public policies that affect businesses and industries in Oregon. They oversee our corporations division that assists entrepreneurs and nonprofits in accessing our public resources, and our elections division, where they promote and defend fair and free elections. Tonight, the Candidate Support Committee has prepared 5 questions for the candidates to answer to the best of their ability, and I look forward to hearing their responses. I'd like to introduce our Candidate Support Committee Chair, Paige Barton, who will be our MC for the evening. Take it away, Paige. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. I'm Paige Barton. My pronouns are she, her. I am the Secretary of the Marion County Democratic Party, and I'm also the Chair of the Candidate Support Committee. Thank you so much to the candidates who've joined us this evening. We have Treasurer Tobias Reed, Senator James Manning Jr., candidate Dave Stauffer, and candidate Jim Crary. And so, just as a general format for the evening, we are going to be, maybe we'll call on the candidates in reverse alphabetical order. But we're going to begin with introductions for 3 minutes. The candidates will have up to 3 minutes to answer all 5 questions. And then each candidate will be provided 5 minutes to talk about their platform and why they're the best choice, and be able to do their wrap up. So I believe in reverse alphabetical order, we are going to have Treasurer Reed go first.
Hi, everybody. I can't hear any audio up till now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Can you? You can hear me.
Yes, we can. If
okay.
You can't hear us,
3 minutes.
I believe I called on you.
So I wonder if I should get out and come back in. That might be an option. So let me try that quickly. I'll be right back.
Okay, thank you so much. And I apologize for my error. If we're going in reverse alphabetical order, candidate Dave Stauffer is actually first. So why don't you take it away, Dave?
Thank you. Very nice to be here tonight, Paige, and Chair Mary, and pleased to have this opportunity to express my main campaign themes. My most important part is that the Secretary of State is also the chair of the Board of Sustainability and Environment. And that's my strong point, because I have got 5 large environmental inventions that can greatly improve Oregon's environment, save us from some of the big problems that we have. The shortage of water, the unbearable heat, the traffic jams, the morning rush hour traffic jam, which is 2 hours long in Portland, and the evening rush hour traffic jam, which is 2 hours long also. And I have a solution that hasn't been thought of before. It's one of my 5 patented solutions. I've applied for US patents on it, and the engineers at the US Patent Office examiners have approved my patents as being both novel and workable. And the first, well, I'll just briefly mention this because I don't know how much time I have left, but the first is I'm going to get water from the Columbia River, which is good, clean, fresh water, and get it down to places where it's needed, such as the Klamath River, down to the lower Klamath Basin, where they don't have enough water for both the fish and the farmers and ranchers. So I'm going to get enough water down there to the lower Klamath Basin to have plenty of water for the salmon to come upriver and spawn. That will free up the upper Klamath Basin to keep their dams up at the top of the basin and provide them water for agriculture and for herds and for drinking, also to put out wildfires. That's one main invention. There's a way I've got to do that. Incidentally, I have a website called Dave Stauffer for Secretary of State, and it's got all these inventions explained in much more detail. Another invention that I have is a way to heat and cool your house, air condition your house without burning fossil fuels. If every house in Oregon was not burning fossil fuels to heat, it would save a great deal of air pollution. And if we save enough air pollution, then maybe we'll make a dent in climate warming. We had a terrible problem 2 summers ago, or summer before last, where it got up to 116 degrees in Portland. That's unacceptable. I went out and after 5 minutes and I got nauseous. So I went back inside, but there were 5 people in Portland that couldn't find air conditioning and they died. We're in an era where we have such things happening. And that's another one of my inventions, which I hope
Thank you, candidate Stauffer. You're at time.
Okay.
Thank you. We're going to kick it over to Treasurer Reed.
Very good. Thank you. I can hear you now, and I was struggling there with trying to unmute myself and not being allowed to. But so I think we have 3 minutes. My apologies for the difficulties with the audio, but I'm glad to be here and glad to have a conversation about a race that's really important. I don't think anybody probably needs any convincing of that, but all you need, if you want some more evidence, is to look around at headlines all over the country around misinformation being spread, around violence being threatened or even perpetrated against voters or election workers, or just bad policy being passed that makes it harder for people to vote. We've got a lot going for us in Oregon. We were the first state to make voting by mail the norm. We were past the 25th anniversary of that. In fact, I think we've really perfected it almost, and we've added automatic voter registration that brings more people into our process. But we can't make the mistake of thinking that these policies, these practices are inevitable or invulnerable. There are people who are trying to roll back that process. So the Secretary of State has a sober responsibility to safeguard our systems of elections. And that's probably what most people think of when they think of the Secretary of State's office. But the office is bigger than that at the same time. The Secretary of State is the auditor in Oregon with the responsibility of making sure that taxpayer dollars are spent efficiently and effectively, that programs and agencies are operating appropriately. And on top of that, the Secretary of State's office is where every business in Oregon registers. So we have an opportunity to make that easy for the next entrepreneurs in Oregon to launch and for businesses in Oregon to continue succeeding. And I am really proud of the record that I've built at Treasury. I think that is really important for an office that has so many important responsibilities. Right now, I think more than ever, it's important to have someone as Secretary of State with a track record of success in setting a culture, in establishing a vision and upholding standards in a statewide agency that has a workforce of hundreds of people and a similar set of responsibilities that people depend on. The turnover we've seen in the Secretary of State's office has really hampered the ability of the office to do what people count on. And I want to bring the approach that I've developed at Treasury, the expertise that we've developed at Treasury, to the Secretary of State's office, so we can continue to live up to our full potential, meet the expectations that Oregonians have for that office, and continue to build a better state. So I'm excited about the opportunity to talk with all of you tonight, and looking forward to the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Treasurer Reed. Next, we're going to kick it over to Senator James Manning Jr.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Madam Chair, Paige, everyone, thank you for this opportunity. I'm really excited about being here today. My name's James Ivory Manning Jr. I am the current Senate President Pro Tem. I'm in my second concurrent term as Senate President Pro Tem. The first time I ran for President Pro Tem, I was elected by the body on a it was a, well, you know, even when you get one Republican to vote for you, I guess you can call that a bipartisan vote. But just last year when I ran, I was elected by the body unanimously. Even my Republican colleagues feel like I am the one that they feel has the highest degree of integrity and trust. I'm running for Secretary of State to restore transparency, integrity, and trust to the office. One of the things that I am really focusing on is the threats that are across the United States. People are trying to get people out of voting, deprive people of access to the ballot box. I am prepared, and I will, as I did 24 years active duty United States Army, I will protect and defend our democracy here in our states. And that includes protecting vote by mail, which we have. I did a bill a couple of sessions ago to have postage paid ballot stamp envelopes. It's working very well. We notice that Oregon now has the highest voter turnout in the nation. I want to expand upon that. And here's how I want to expand upon that. Well, first, we know that we have motor voter registration. We know now, we did a bill last session last year to add automatic voter registration for people that enroll in an Oregon Health Plan. This year, I introduced a bill that will expand upon it for college and university students who don't have a driver's license or a state ID. Once they register in school, then they will automatically be registered as voters. That's going to take a little work, I found out, because we have to look at the Department of Revenue and a few other places to make sure that privacy and things like that are protected and adhered to. I have been looking around the states, and I've conferred with a lot of our elections officers, and some of the things that's really shocking is about the inconsistency of standards from one office to another. I realize that everyone has their own things to do, but we need to standardize that. And with that, I see my time is up.
Thank you so much, Senator Manning. Next, we are going to go to candidate Jim Crary.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm running for a very specific reason, because anyone that runs for a public office is basically applying for the job. And every job that I've ever been involved in, I had to go through a job interview. And what I want to do is, on the Secretary of State's website, add a new tab where any registered voter, and you have to be a registered voter, can ask questions of any or all the candidates. And then you could, if you ask a question of all the candidates, you can compare and contrast their answers side by side. I really do not like the way most campaigns are run today. Normally, there's a lot of mud throwing. You're trying to get somebody to vote against somebody rather than vote for you. That's wrong. I want to you ask a candidate a direct question. They don't answer the direct question and they pivot to some canned talking point. I hate that. They talk in broad platitudes. I want to cut waste. I want to be more efficient. Okay, great. Tell me how you're going to do it. And I want people to answer the questions. They try to get their name recognized. So when you go into the time to vote, you may not know anything about them or what they really want to do, but you recognize the name and you vote for them. That's wrong. I want people to vote for somebody because the candidate gave the best answers. So instead of dialing for dollars and spending all the time trying to raise money so you can go on TV and send out flyers, answer the questions that the people have, the voters have. And that would be so important. It especially is something that young people would like. Young people, they think, oh, my vote doesn't mean a thing. Wrong. If you can get a young person to ask a question, they are going to vote. They are going to vote informed. And that's so important. We had about 68% of people, registered voters, vote in the last general election. Good. That's nationally, that's very good. We used to get up to 82%. So why are we not voting up in the 80s and even into the 90s? Because so many people think that it's a rigged deal and their vote means nothing. So let's get people involved. Let's get them engaged. Let's get them empowered by having them ask questions of the candidates. Candidates don't have to answer, but they know that it's a registered voter that's asked the question. And it can really turn things around. And that's the main reason I'm running, is to get this new tab on the voter website and allow any registered voter to ask questions of any or all the candidates. It's really a totally nonpartisan thing. It doesn't cut left, it doesn't cut right, it cuts towards better government. And that's what we should have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we are going to move into our first question. Our first question for the candidates this evening, and we'll be starting with Mr. Dave Stauffer again. Question number 1. The Republican running for Marion County Clerk has stated that she is not subject to oversight by the Oregon Secretary of State, will conduct hand counts of all ballots, and may dismiss any suspicious ballot at her discretion. If county clerks who believe they are not under the control of the Secretary of State are elected to county clerk positions, how will you ensure free and fair elections?
The first thing I will do is tell this candidate that she is subject to the Secretary of State's supervision. And if she won't be subject, then she will be removed. There are two things that you said in your question. One, that she will hand count ballots. That's okay. If she wants to have it go through the computer and hand count it, that's acceptable. That's more work for her, but that's allowable as long as it doesn't delay the vote. And then you also said she may dismiss any suspicious ballot at her discretion. No. If she has a suspicious ballot that she wants to dismiss, she's got to hold it aside and talk to the Secretary of State to see if there's any problem with it. Other than that, the election should go on. And if this person doesn't comply with the Secretary of State's directives, she'll be gone.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to turn it over to Treasurer Reed.
Always waiting to make sure I'm unmuted. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's take this in order. First of all, I have confidence that the Marion County electorate knows the truth that hand counts of elections are both impractical, especially in a county the size of Marion. They are much slower, and everywhere they are far less accurate. So I'm hopeful that voters in Marion County will not be persuaded to elect a candidate like the one you described. But if such a person is elected as clerk, the Secretary of State's role is really clear in statute. ORS 246-110 outlines the Secretary's role as the state's chief election officer and says that the Secretary's responsibility is to ensure that there is uniformity in the application, operation, and interpretation of election laws. There are also really specific provisions that must be followed to challenge a ballot. And if a clerk violates those statutes, I would make it really clear. Well, first of all, I'd try to make that really clear before they did anything like that. But if they did violate those statutes, I would make clear my intent to use another important piece of statute, 246-820, that gives the Secretary of State the authority to take the clerk to court and ensure that they follow the law. I'm just really clear on the role that I would play here, and I think statute is as well. I'm comfortable with the idea of carrying out those responsibilities. These procedures, these standards are worth defending, and I would not hesitate to do so with all the legal authorities that are available to the Secretary of State.
Thank you so much. Next, we will go to Senator Manning.
Thank you. Interesting question. I think that we had some incidents that occurred with a county clerk in one of our other areas before late turn in. You know, Oregonians expect for us to have that when they cast their ballot, they expect for it to be secure and that each and every one is counted. We have a robust system of signature verifications to help out that and move the process forward. The accountability part is one of the things that I will depend on and I will hold myself accountable at first. Earlier, I had mentioned about training standards. One of the first things I want to do is establish a training standard so that all clerks, all election workers have a clear understanding of what their roles and responsibilities are in terms of the people vote. I think that that's really critical. So I've asked for about $5 to $10 million so that I can upgrade security features at all 36 elections offices, provide the necessary protective clothing or equipment that they need, enhance those features. And the training part is critically important. I think that by establishing a standardized expectation where everybody knows and everybody's doing the same thing, we can avoid this. But what's more importantly, if there is something that occurs where you have an elections officer or an office that refuse to conform to the laws and regulations, there are methods in place in order to remove that person and get it right. At the same time, having everybody aware of what the training standards and requirements are, it will be less of an evil to move one person that is or may quit or whatever the case may be over to replace that person. We don't have that currently, and that's why everybody's doing something completely different. So those are things that I would implement. I think it's a good thing, a good practice, and ensure that all elections officers across the state are adhering to the exact same thing. We already have ORS to outline what they are. They need to be taught, educated on it, and adhere to the people's wish. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Manning. Now we're going to hand it over to Jim Crary. Sorry, Jim Crary. I've been mispronouncing your name. I apologize.
No problem. I've been called a lot worse, trust me. Um, First thing I would do is confer with the Attorney General and say, hey, I want to get my facts straight. I want to get my laws all straight. I know that the Secretary of State is the chief elections officer. I know we have to have uniform ways to do things. With that background, once I got my legal basis in order, I would call up the secretary or the clerk and say, hey, let's meet. Let me talk to you. Let's see what you really want. And if they want to hand count after they do the machine count, if they want to spend that time, I don't see any problem with doing that. If they want to do something that is not within the statute, then that's a different conversation. And if the clerk were to persist in wanting to do something that was illegal against the statute, then she would run into, I would again confer with the Attorney General. I'm not sure if the Secretary of State, I assume the Secretary of State would have to go through the Attorney General to bring a lawsuit to enforce. I'm not quite sure on that. I really don't know that. And I'd have to check that. But if it came to court to uphold it, so be it. But the first thing I would do is try to talk to the clerk, find out what the clerk is, where she is coming from on this. And if you can't reason with her, then unfortunately, the courts are going to make the decision. And I assume with the statutes as clear as they are, it's going to be against the clerk. So that's the way I would proceed.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For our second question, the Secretary of State is responsible for audits. How would you describe your experience in auditing? Secondly, how many audits have you conducted and under what circumstances? We'll begin with Dave Stauffer.
Thank you, Paige. I have considerable auditing experience. A while back, I was a junior auditor working for Price Waterhouse CPAs, and we audited Montana Power Company. I also audited Longview Fiber Company with that. Now, I was not a high-level auditor at the time, but I do have that audit experience. And in addition, I was the business manager for the North Slope Borough School District in Barrow, Alaska for 4 years. And I put together an accounting and a financial system for them. It's basically 5,000 Inupiat Eskimos in 7 remote villages up in the northern part, the very northern part of Alaska. And we had to get a good accounting system. And I put that together, and an auditing firm, Maine LaFrance CPAs, audited that and gave us a clean audit opinion. So I'm familiar with how to read financial data and how to make samples of transactions to make sure that things are being operated correctly.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to hand it to Treasurer Reed.
Thank you. Let's start with an understanding of what the Secretary of State's role is really here. And I think it's clear that it is overseeing the functions of audits within the Secretary of State's office and the implications and relationships across state government. In fact, wherever state dollars are spent, that involves hiring and managing auditors and staff and helping provide direction and oversight over the establishment of an audit agenda. It's clear to me that agenda ought to be driven by risks, not by politics or predetermined agendas. The Secretary of State, of course, also reviews and issues the final audit reports and works with departments and other executive branch agencies to promote and ensure compliance with those audit findings. As treasurer, I lead an agency that in fact has a lot of similarities with the Secretary of State's office. We both have internal audit functions. At Treasury, we have that in a way that is overseen by a chief audit executive and a team that works for the chief auditor. And we contract out, in addition, for external audit services when we need that external perspective and expertise for Treasury. These audit functions are combined and create a seamless and really effective agenda that help me and my Treasury team manage the portfolio that is in excess of $140 billion, mostly in state trust funds, and protects and safeguard our role as the state's bank, where we process about 30 million transactions every year that account for about $380 billion of state and local governments. So overseeing this type of work on behalf of state government is something I have direct experience in, and I can step in on day one to help to establish, support, and grow a qualified team of audit executives who will help ensure that the state's dollars are well spent and that they, along with the programs and activities that are undertaken in Oregon, are in line with the expectations of the legislature and of Oregonians.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to Senator Manning.
Thank you. I had mentioned very slightly, I served in the United States Army active duty for over 24 years. I have 24 years of auditing experience in the various positions that I've been in. But the one that's most recently is the U.S. Army Assistant Inspector General, where I led audit teams and I participated in audit teams nationally and internationally. Very high level stuff. So some of my audits led me over to units and say, for example, the United States Army Southern Command, which oversees all of the South, all of the countries in the South, and ensured that they had 100% accountability. All of my audits and my findings, because one, you identify what the issue is, and there should be standards on how to rectify any errors that are there. And once they're rectified, made whole, which is the accountability portion that we have to use. You just can't do an audit and there is no accountability to that. I am the only one that has this amount of direct experience, and I've even received accommodations for the outcomes of my audits that I have performed over years. So I have a lot of experience. Now, there are 3 agencies that I am very interested in a audit as soon as I get into the Secretary's office. One is ODOT. I want to know the issues that they're having with contracting or minority and women contracting. OHA, we know that our healthcare system is not where it should be. And the employment division. I've had constituents contact me, phone and emails and letters that have applied for unemployment compensation and have yet to receive anything. I heard that the unemployment department or the employment department is like 20 days, 29 days, and some people are months out. This is unacceptable. We have to do better than that. And the audit is the way to uncover what's going wrong so we can fix it.
Thank you very much, Senator Manning. And then next we will go to Jim Crary.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. my experience with audits was when I worked with BP, and I made sure that my audit experience was to make sure that the contract performance mirrored the contract language. So I've done some. I am in no way, shape, or form an expert at audits, but here's what I've also done. I've done supervision of people. The people that are going to be doing the audits are not me. I'm going to be supervising the career people that are doing the audits. My role is to, not be the person that is out there doing the audits, but to talk to the career staff, make sure that we're doing the audits of the agencies that are most important, and then to make sure that we ask questions that are probing. The biggest thing to me about an audit is don't be afraid to ask a question. If you have, don't be, you're not there to be their best friend. You're there to check, to make sure that things are operating as they were supposed to. So ask probing questions and ask questions that may make the other side uncomfortable. But that's the job of the auditor, as far as I'm concerned. So I see my role here as a supervisor, not as a person that needs to be totally the best auditor in the world, because I am not that person, but I am a good supervisor. And that's where I see my role in this. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're moving on now to our third question. The question is, many of our city governments, including Salem, have significant budget issues. How could the Secretary of State make collecting business taxes easier and more cost-effective for local governments? We'll begin with Dave Stauffer.
Okay. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is one issue where I would rely on my staff and the general public to tell me how they think we should make some sort of relationship to help these cities collect taxes. I haven't got any good ideas myself, so this is where I rely on others. That's it.
Thank you so much. We'll move on now to Treasurer Reed.
It's always a little awkward that I get the muted and then unmuted and the automated one. So of course, the collection of state revenue is the responsibility of the Department of Revenue, but there might well be ways to be more supportive of the role that the Department of Revenue can be in helping local governments collect business taxes. And that might well be something that the audit professionals could look at and ensure that local governments are using best practices to make sure that revenues that are owed to them are being collected. And additionally, as we've talked about, the Secretary of State heads the corporation division where businesses who operate in Oregon register. And as Secretary of State, I want to look for ways to help more small businesses and entrepreneurs get established and registered in Oregon, and find ways that we can help Oregon become one of the easiest places for a new business to be created. Because the more vibrant and healthy that our business environment is, the more businesses that start and succeed, the more revenue will be available to local businesses to provide the key services their residents expect from them. That, I think, is the place to start with this really important question.
Thank you very much. Next, we are going to go to Senator Manning.
Thank you. Yes, to the question, collecting revenue tax, certainly the agency that comes to mind is Department of Revenue. They would be the lead. Now, using the tool of the audit, perhaps there are some deficiencies that may exist at certain levels, especially if it's something that's reoccurring or if it is spread across multiple jurisdictions. certainly with audits, we can uncover what those issues are and what fixes need to be applied. But the actual collection of the tax, Department of Revenue would have the lead on that.
Thank you very much, Senator. Next, we'll go to Mr. Jim Crary.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jim.
Okay, thanks. I don't have an answer. I don't know the answer. Here's the thing. I'm being given 60 seconds to answer a question that I have not seen before, 20 minutes ago. So that's one thing I don't like about, that's one thing why I want to have a website where any registered voter can ask a question so that candidates are able to give well thought out and detailed answers. If I had the time, I could research a question like this and I could give you an answer that would be hopefully satisfying. But right now, right off the top of my head, I don't know and I can't give it to you. But that's, again, I guess this kind of a question to me is another reason why we should have a tab on the Secretary of State's website where any registered voter can ask a question and the candidates can then take the time and give an answer that is really more than a soundbite and has some validity to it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim. So moving on to our fourth question. The Secretary of State's Elections Division is known to have a backlog of elections and campaign finance complaints, and not enough staff to resolve most complaints in a timely manner. Under your leadership, how would you prioritize a responsive elections division to the people of Oregon? We'll begin with Dave Stauffer.
Thank you. Your question presumes that we don't have enough staff to answer all the complaints. And the obvious answer is to get more staff. I suspect that the bulk of complaints happen around election times or the time right before elections. So I think the Secretary of State's office should plan to have extra personnel on hand for those complaints and handle them in an efficient manner and get all the complaints considered. That's it.
Thank you so much, Dave. Next, we'll move to Treasurer Reed.
Thanks. I think this is a really important question. In fact, there's a pretty similar dynamic that I confronted when I became treasurer that I think offers a useful lesson here. For years prior to my arrival at Treasury, the investment division struggled in some pretty significant ways, especially in their efforts to secure the necessary resources to hire additional staff so that they can be more efficient and effective in their management of the state's pension plan and other resources. And I have to say one of my proudest accomplishments as treasurer is the success we've had in securing those significant investments from the legislature for new positions in Treasury. And the result of that has been significant savings on behalf of PERS, our pension fund, and increased performance of those investments. And that accrues to the benefit of the entire state. The way we did that, I think, is what's the lesson here. We did it by building strong support amongst legislators on both sides of the aisle and by presenting our budgets in a really professional and transparent way. We did all that hard work by demonstrating the business case, the need for those investments, and building support amongst all kinds of key stakeholders. That, I think, is the first step, and it's certainly one that I would build on as Secretary of State. This track record, I think, is really illustrative of the approach that I would bring to the Secretary of State's office. But that's the easy part. once you secure those additional resources and that support, you have to be committed, I think, to creating the culture of accountability and results that will deliver the performance. That is not glamorous work. It's not something that is done all at once. It's day-to-day work. It's the kind of thing that I've been doing at Treasury since I was first elected. And that direct experience of managing a large state agency is important. I think it's, in fact, what sets me apart in this race. I know how to hire professional, dedicated public servants, how to give them the support they need to be successful. I know how to work with frontline workers and state employees who interact with Oregonians on a daily basis. And there's a second example. I faced another similar challenge at Treasury when the state decided to transfer the unclaimed property program from the Department of State Lands to Treasury. When I took this program over, the average time to process a claim was roughly a year. That function was understaffed and unsupported. Now, if you fast forward 2 years, we've dramatically cut the processing time by over 50%. We've taken steps to find ways to proactively reconnect Oregonians with their unclaimed funds. Again, this is the kind of work I've been doing for almost 8 years, managing large, complex, important state agency on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's that experience that sets me apart in this race.
Thank you so much, Treasurer. Next, we'll go to Senator Manning.
Okay, thank you. This question is where leadership comes into play. As I had mentioned previously, my 24 years active duty Army serving as a U.S. Army Assistant Inspector General. The first thing is assuming that these are complaints that's coming in. The first thing and most important is investing in the employees. The first thing I would do is conduct a sensing session. The answer to the problem, if it exists, could lie right there with the employees that's doing a day-to-day work. I'm not going to assume that the things are out of hand, but they do. A good idea doesn't care who has it. So that would be my first thing. I want to make sure that the employees of the Secretary of State office, I set them up for success and not assume anything is going on nefarious or bad. The efficiencies that is necessary. During the sensing session, all of these thoughts that are coming out will have a certain impact. I've handled businesses where I've gone in, started a program called Innovators, and it was based around safety, plant safety. And I would walk out and I would talk to the people. I'm the kind of person, I believe hands-on. That's been my entire career, hands-on. I go out and I talk to people. I establish relationships. And once you do that, you'll be amazed of how people will respond to issues and come up with suggestions and recommendations on how to improve. So the first thing is to make sure that I'm doing everything I can for the employees to set them up for success. They, in turn, will do everything that they can to improve efficiency and quality of reporting as necessary, part of transparency and oversight. So my leadership would be very valuable in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Manning. And then next we will go to Jim Crary.
Am I on?
Yes.
Thank you. I know that the legislature increased the budget to add a full-time person. I think it was last year. So, but that obviously still hasn't done it. So one, you could go back to the legislature and say, hey, we need more funding for a full-time. If they don't give you that, then you have to look at a temporary person to come in and handle the backlog to get rid of it. Here's what I would do right off the bat is I would set up a triage system. So there are complaints that are kind of routine, and then there are complaints that are really existential to somebody's campaign. So to me, the ones that you want to deal with first are existential type, they're going to stop someone's campaign. So you would take those first. But that doesn't mean that they're not all going to be handled. The other thing you need to do is let the complainant know what the status is. So after the triage, you'd send an email to the person that gave the complaint and say, hey, we've determined that this is a minor complaint and it's going to be handled, but it'll be handled after we get to some other ones. Just so they know. People want to know that, one, they have been heard and that they're not being ignored and it didn't go into the circular file, never to surface again. So let people know. And every month, at least every month, you'd send a status report out to the people that lodged the complaint so they would know. The other thing that I would do, if a complaint came from a particular county, I would call the county clerk in that county and say, hey, we've got this complaint. I would like to work with you on resolving this complaint. So they're the people that are, where the rubber meets the road, the clerks in each county. Why not bring them in and work with them on the complaint? Not only would they probably have knowledge that we wouldn't have at the state level, but they also would be able to come up with some good solutions too. So those 5 things. If you can't get a full-time equivalent, get a temp, set up a triage system, let the complainant know what the status is, and work with the clerks. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. So as the MC this evening, we were aware that Treasurer Reed has kind of a hard end time at 7 o'clock. So we've chosen to skip our 5th question and instead move into candidate wrap-ups and whatever else they'd like to share with us. And we'd like to kick it off with Treasurer Reed.
Thanks very much. I think I would just like to end where I began and express my appreciation for the opportunity to talk about an office that is really important, that is central to the kind of state, the kind of system of government that we all want. We take too many of these things for granted, I think, in Oregon. And I am really excited about trying to bring the stability and professionalism to the Secretary of State's office that I think it has lacked. The 4 secretaries of state, while I've been treasurer, I think have hampered the ability of the office to do what Oregonians have counted on, and I want to bring that back. Defending our democracy, defending our system of mail-in voting, making sure that voters have all the comfort and access that they need, making sure that audits are driven not by politics but by a sincere and robust assessment of risk, and making sure that we are turning the corporation division into a partner for entrepreneurs and business, not a bureaucratic barrier. You don't have to guess what it's like to have me as a statewide elected official. You have 7 years of data, of solid performance, of a culture, and of results that work for Oregonians at the state treasurer. I would very much like to have your support and look forward to continuing the conversation the rest of the way. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Treasurer Reed. Next, we will go to Mr. Dave Stauffer.
Thank you, Paige, and thanks to the Marion County Democrats for having us for this conversation. I'd like to go back to what I said at the beginning, and that is that I'm the only candidate that has an environmental plan. Oregon has some environmental problems, some big problems. We got too much heat in the summer. We had 116 degrees the summer before last, and that was miserable. And we've had wildfires and heat waves and lack of water. And we need to work on those problems before they destroy us. Who wants to live in a world where you can't breathe the air? And we've had those times where the health department has said sick people should stay inside because the air is unhealthy. And we've had too much heat in that heat wave where there was 116 degrees in Portland. There were 5 people that died. And we don't want that kind of environment. It's got to be a high priority. And I have 5 patented inventions that can get us closer to that state where we have good, clean air and we have plenty of water, and everybody actually is paying less, because if you can heat your house and air condition your house without burning fossil fuels, then you don't have to pay for those fossil fuels. Everybody would get a decrease in their utility bills. It's an ideal that we've got to strive for. So far, in the Democrats in Oregon have allocated the money for it, for a lot of it, but they haven't actually figured out how to do it. President Biden also has $1.4 trillion to spend on infrastructure, and he's biased towards environmental projects. So the state of Oregon should be working very closely with President Biden and our state senators and representatives to get our share of that funding to clean up our air and make this a livable environment. If we don't, we might have a terrible time. Our kids might have a terrible time just staying alive. Thank you for all your attention today, and good to meet with you.
Thanks, Dave. We really appreciate you being here. Next, we're going to go to Senator James Manning.
Thank you. Thank you, Marion County, for this opportunity to come and for this interview. I really enjoyed the questions. They're very relevant. I'm running again to restore the trust, transparency, and integrity to the Secretary of State's office. And this includes protecting our vote by mail and expanding opportunities for more Oregonians to participate in democracy. There is a lot of mis and disinformation out there. I intend to dispel those mis and disinformations by way of actually engagement in all 36 counties. I want to extend a standardized training that will apply and be applicable to all elections offices across our state, so that we already know what the expectations are. There are some counties where their elections officers, they just leave. They find another job. So people come in, the tribal knowledge is lost, and there we have breakdowns in the system. We can't do that. That's why I asked for $5 to $10 million to improve and enhance security upgrades, make sure that people have their proper protective clothing they need, and the training, which is so essential. In addition to that, as one of the jobs or participation for Secretary of State is on the State Land Board. I am the only candidate in this that have been endorsed by Sierra Club. And the reason that they have endorsed me is because they know that I will never sell our water rights, our lands, or our forests. But as EWEB commissioner, Nestle came to us one day and wanted to purchase water rights on the Mackenzie. The Mackenzie River is the sole water source for Eugene. I looked at Nestle and I said, let me see if I get this straight. You want us to give you the rights to our drinking water, and then you're going to sell it back to us. It made no sense. So I led the charge and we stopped that. Another issue that came up, and a reporter asked me, the reporter said, you know, the Office of Secretary of State doesn't pay much. And I replied, I served active duty United States Army for 24 years. It didn't pay much either. So I am doing it as a public servant. I believe that being a public servant keeps my mind grounded on what this job or what this office is about. It is about service to the people. I am that candidate with the experience. I'm that candidate with the leadership. I've proven that in the active duty Army, where I was in charge of hundreds of troops and their families, and billions of dollars of equipment. I'm the only candidate that fits that bill. My leadership, I am also an adjunct. I teach leadership. So with that, I am going to stop, but I would ask that if you are interested, and I hope you will, to help me out, to volunteer, or just look me up on my website, votejamesmanning.com, votejamesmanning.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then finally, we will kick it over to Mr. Jim Crary.
Last but not least, right? No, I'm the only one that has a specific idea that's going to engage, empower, and educate voters, and especially engage and empower young voters. And that is the tab on the Secretary of State's website, where any registered voter can ask a question of any or all the candidates. And the candidates can then, they don't have to answer, but then it's up to the voter to say, hey, I asked this question and they didn't answer. How is that going to impact my vote? It's going to be an educated vote. They're going to be able to decide on the import of the answer or the non-answer. How about, hey, Mr. Candidate or Miss Candidate, what are you going to do to address climate change? What are you going to do to address student debt? You can ask specific questions, and the candidates will have to give you, they don't have to give you an answer, but if they don't, you're going to look across the other candidates and find somebody that gives you an answer that makes sense to you, and you're going to vote informed. This is not, this is going to be a one and done for me. This is not a stepping stone to some higher office for me. I'm doing this for the very specific reason because I want that website up to empower, educate, and engage voters. If anybody has any questions or concerns or thoughts, give me a call, 541-531-2912. You're not going to get some staffer. You're not going to get well, you might get voicemail, but I'll call you right back. And I want to hear what you have to say about my idea to have the voters be the people that are interviewing the job applicants that are running for office. So, you know, most candidates will ask for money or their votes. I'm not asking for the money, but I am asking for your vote. In 1948, Truman, when he was running for president, said, don't vote for me. Or no, he said, I'm not asking for your vote, asking you to vote for yourself. That's what you're doing if you vote for me. You're voting for yourself because you're going to give yourself the power to ask questions of all the candidates, and that's a huge power. So thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for being here, Jim. We thank all of the candidates for your participation tonight. This was a really exciting forum to have to get to know you all better. And I will hand it over to our chair, Marion, if she has any closing remarks.
Hello, everyone. I can't figure out how to spotlight myself, so there we are. Thank you, candidates, for all coming. I really appreciate it. We were hoping to stream this, but that did not work, so it did not get streamed. It is recorded, though, and we will be presenting it. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for your willingness to step up and represent our wonderful state. Keep Oregon green. Thank you all very much. Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you so much for attending.